Okay, welcome to the behind the scenes roundtable discussion. We don't have an official title for this of the 2020 Summer Directing II class directors who have had the extremely unique opportunity and I guess task of completing, rather than completing a one-act play project as is typical with the Directing II class. These intrepid guinea pigs slash artists have created short films this summer, obviously due to the same reason that we are now discussing this in this format, for the sake of social distancing and safety, and to avoid bringing the flock of audiences that I'm sure would have come to see their work in person if we could do that. And someday we will again. So we thought that we would have a little discussion here about the process and the results of this grand experiment. Perhaps because there are going to be some students who do this again at Wesleyan in the fall. They're going to opt to do, they'll have some choices, but some will opt to do a short film as well. So you guys will be helping give them some insights too. But also just for those who get to see the films and hopefully enjoy them and might be interested to hear some of the behind the scenes stuff. So let me ask first, well, actually, let's go around the room real quick. And since we're recording my version, we'll go clockwise for me. Everyone just quickly introduce yourself and give us the title of the film that you directed, and also whether you wrote it or adapted, and if you adapted it, who was the original author. So we'll start to my right with Morgan.
Hi, I'm Morgan Lowry. My short film that I got the honor to work on was called Turning Points, and it was a play written by Christine Olsen that I then adapted for the screen.
Great, thank you. Below you is Garrett.
Hi, I'm Garrett Westcamp, and I directed Superheroes of Tooltown, and I adapted it from the play by Madeline Worth. So I adapted it for the screen.
Great, awesome. And next to you is Nia.
I'm Nia. The film that I directed is called Without Notice, and I wrote it.
Yes, you did. All right. And next to you is Brian.
Hi, I'm Brian, and the script that I wrote is called Amor.
Mm-hmm. And that leaves Claire.
Hi, I'm Claire Goodwater, and I wrote and directed Off Kilter.
Excellent. Cool. We'll hear more about the specifics of each film in a minute. So just one question for the group. Who has done any kind of film work before this, either on camera or behind the camera? Anything that you've gotten to work on before? So this is really kind of brand new for everybody. I suppose you've made short film type projects for classes, things like that. Ever worked on that in some degree, a little bit? But never just purely an artistic endeavor like this, I suppose. That's great. I guess I'm going to ask one more kind of just for the group, and anybody can answer, and not everybody has to. But going into this, I'm sure you had unavoidably some expectations about what it might be like. You know, what you might get out of it, what might the challenges be, what might be your strengths for it. I guess I'm just curious, like what has been most surprising to you? What was unexpected in terms of the process of this, either because it was easier or more fun than you thought, or the opposite?
I guess one of the challenges that I've ran into that I guess I didn't really expect, or I guess I underestimated it, was just the beast that is technology. I'm not super savvy with movie editing programs or anything like that. So it's been kind of a struggle to sort of convey my vision and also have the computer program follow that. I'm getting there, but it's definitely something I didn't expect to run into. So it's been a couple long nights trying to get it to work, but we're making headway.
Yeah. And I should say for those watching that we are recording this on a day where it is still the last day that these projects are due. So we don't have all of them fully completed yet, but they're making good progress. They still have many, many hours left to get this done in the day. So Cool. Who else? What else was surprising or unexpected or you underestimated?
I came into this class extremely nervous just because of my lack of experience. So I was super nervous to just take on the whole project, but I definitely underestimated the power of having a good team behind you. And once I got that good team of, editors and just other people helping me out, then it really helped me a lot.
That's great. Yeah, I think that's a very important insight. That one of the big points of this class, whether it's for one act or for this, is collaboration and working with people and having not just with actors and the cast, although I'm sure that's part of what you're referring to, but also people to help you behind the scenes. So that's great. Anyone else? Well, I'm going to go around again now and just refer to some specifics. I won't go necessarily the same order because I think each of you we were really lucky in that each of you turned in a extremely unique script. There is no overlap, no parallels really here in terms of genres, in terms of what people are working in. There's a lot of, we have 5 very different film projects here. I'm going to start with Nia. Can you talk a little bit about I guess, for lack of a better term, I think what's unique about yours in particular is there's a more than a message, there's kind of a mission behind it, I feel like, for you in terms of, you and I have talked about just your goals as an artist, the kind of things you want to create, more than just for entertainment's sake. And can you talk about that in relation to this film?
Yeah, so Without Notice talks about like self-help evictions, which is just when a landlord like unlawfully evicts a tenant. So instead of going through like the eviction like civil court process, they will do like intimidation. They won't handle like maintenance stuff. So if you have like a broken roof or you have like a bug infestation or anything like that and you try and report it, but like say because of COVID you're behind on your rent, they'll like use that against you even though they can't really kick you out right now. And just a lot of like egging on like the original like housing crisis is kind of like a small portion of just that issue. And I with my writing, because I would like to not only do like my own creative endeavors, but it would be interesting to go into like journalistic stuff. Like if you've ever watched like Patriot Act, like that's like one of my favorite shows.
Sure.
And so that's kind of how that came into play, is just taking this as an opportunity to work on those skills.
Yeah. And that show has both substance, but is also styled comedically. There's comedy in there. And were you aiming for some comedic tone in your film too, occasionally?
I never really aim for tones when I write. Most of the time I'm a character-based writer. Like I focus on like the people. And so usually it'll be funny because like even in war situations, like people make jokes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And that's how we're all going through a international crisis right now. Many of them probably, but and we do deal with it a lot of times by laughing and finding a levity. Yeah, great. I'm going to jump over to Claire. You certainly have unique in your format in that you've written 6 original sketches, and I'll just go ahead and tell everybody you actually started with at least 9. Yeah. And pared that down to 6 for the sake of your sanity, I hope, among other things. So what was it like? Did it feel like you were directing 6 different stories, 6 different short films as putting this together? Or do you feel like there was a unifying through line of any kind for these different sketches?
Kinda. There's one scene or 2 scenes, I should say, that you could see some overlap because of the same actors playing these couples.
Oh, okay.
So
that was deliberate. I'm sorry, that was deliberate in terms of casting. You were
sort of.
Okay.
Yeah. Like when I wrote it, it wasn't intentionally connected to the same story, but when I was casting, I was like, ooh, this could be fun. Like, let's see if people notice and like speculate.
Gotcha. Okay. So what do you think was unique about, directing, I should say, sketches versus a one narrative like everybody else really was doing?
It was fun because every day was something different, a different location, a different story, different people I was working with.
Mhm.
I didn't have to worry about like continuity really, just within that one scene.
Yeah, yeah.
So in some ways, it's probably kind of a cop out to this assignment, but
Well, I think you're selling yourself short. There's a lot of challenges to not only working with a lot larger cast size than I think everybody else had, but having to have definitely 6 different locations in a lot of ways, or at least make it look like 6 different places. So, cool. Well, I'm going to jump back over to Morgan now. Um, so, uh, specifically, you had. There's a lot of unique things about yours. Again, being adapted from a friend's play, short play, and having to turn that into a screenplay. But I thought it was interesting that you were one of the few who went on location for at least one shot, and that was in a public place. That was at the airport, the Lincoln Airport, right? Uh,
Mhm.
just tell me what that was like. What made you nervous about that, or how that went, and anything else about the shoot itself.
Yeah, the airport scene is the last scene that we did. I guess just things that made me nervous just because of COVID and the global pandemic and airports, like that can be a hotspot location. So I definitely changed the script a little bit so that way we didn't have to go inside the airport at all. We could shoot it outside. Um, and one of the characters, Claire, she did have to step just in the doorway just so that she could walk out the doors to meet her mom. So we made sure she had a mask as she was walking in and while the doors closed, and then just she took the mask off like 1 second before she walked out the door just so it wouldn't be on camera.
Yeah.
So just those safety concerns made me a little bit nervous, but I think that we handled those well. I was also a little nervous that like security would come up to us and be like, "What are you guys doing?" And we definitely got some like strange looks from security or, or pilots, or just I guess it was a challenge. Oh, am I frozen? Okay. I guess it was a challenge that we would be like in the middle of a shot and then a car would drive right through it. So then we'd have to stop and start over. So that was a unique challenge for that scene. So it took a little bit longer just to get through it, but I'm really happy with the way it turned out. And I think it's one of my favorite scenes just because you're not just looking at like a living room or anything like that. There's a lot of other stuff going on. And the editor that worked on my movie as well did a great job at like the montage part of it. We kind of just walked around and took shots of airplanes and the airport in itself, and he did a great job with the montage that starts it and then another montage that transitions into the second scene. So I'm really happy with the way it turned out.
Yeah, and that's something unique about filmmaking too, is that you said it's the last thing you shot, but it's
Mhm.
the beginning of the movie, right? It's the first
Right.
part of the movie. So again, that shooting out of order because of budget and time and whatever, and people's schedules and stuff. That's a very common thing. Um, so last follow up then is this story is loosely based on the playwright's real life, right, and her family. Um, what did you feel going into it as a director, taking somebody else's story? It's one thing to take, as Garrett did, somebody else's story that they wrote and have to try to, live up to what they created, but for that to also be connected to their personal life. What would you feel going into it with that in mind?
Yeah, I think I definitely had like a large respect for the script, and I tried to keep as much of it as I possibly could. I did have to cut quite a bit just because of time.
Yeah.
But I definitely put a lot of consideration into what scenes I cut or what lines I cut, and tried my best not to alter the overall story in any way, because this is, I mean, it's her work, but it's also her story, her life. This is something that really happened. I didn't want to release this short film that was just completely inaccurate and maybe didn't really portray the real message. So I definitely tried to put a lot of consideration into what I was cutting and how it all pieced together in the end.
Cool. Thanks. Brian, let's talk about your project. Again, a very original piece that you wrote, and also seems to be fairly personal to you as well. Um, you and Nia were unique in that even though you may have had an instructor who discouraged this at first just for your own sanity and your own sake, ended up acting in your own films as well, right? Um, and again, you know, the only reason I was saying you might want to avoid that is just for your own, you know, peace of mind. But tell me about the reason that you wanted to do that, and also just what that was like as far as a challenge. Um, or did you find that it was, you know, more freeing or easier than if you were having to direct somebody else in the role?
Yeah, thank you for that question. It was very interesting actually. The reason why I just kind of want to go down this route is just because there isn't a lot of like Latino plays, and so that's something I kind of wanted to base on is a little bit about the Latino culture, just kind of bringing it in a little bit. About like some issues that you see is like um the helicopter parent. That's very common in Latino culture because basically when you're younger, you usually live with your parent until you like you're 20 or until you get married, and then that's when you like finally just move out. So it's a huge different culture from my originally family's from Peru, so it's a different culture. So I wanted to add that in. There's other little aspects that I wanted to add in there too. So that's just the main reason why I just kind of wanted to act in it, and then also go that route with like Latino kind of culture.
Yeah. So how did it go for you as far as the you know, did
Yeah,
you find that it was easier, more difficult by being in it and directing?
I thought it was gonna be easy, but it's honestly it's quite a challenge just because I was mostly focusing on directing, and then when it came for me to actually like act, it was I had to like have a different mindset in a way. And so in a lot of the times like I keep telling the actors not to look at the camera, but then like as I was going back through footage,
No.
I was looking at the camera. And so like I just had to just to keep myself like reminded of like what I'm telling them to also do it to myself. So it was interesting to be in front of it and then be behind it. And then like I had luckily I had other people helping me, which was really nice of them to do with like filming.
Yeah.
So I was kind of helping them like how kind of like shoot the like how to shoot the frame
Yeah.
and like and everything like that. So it was interesting kind of going back and forth. So
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure you can feel a little bit schizophrenic trying to just, you know, get
yeah.
who's what role am I doing now? And it's dangerous because it can feel like an afterthought, the acting part of it, when you're so focused on directing, and you don't want to do that. You want the as the director, you want the whole thing to be good, so you want your performance to work as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. All right, Garrett, thank you for being patient over there. So tell me about adaptation, because you had a play that it was, I think, very theatrical. It was written truly to be a play, and I hope it gets to be performed as a play someday too. But you know, what was it like to take this thing that was, first of all, written to be longer too, longer than what your kind of time frame for this film was, and to not only trim it down, but to try to make it more cinematic rather than theatrical? What was that like for you?
Well, yeah, the first big hurdle was timing. It was written for like 30 to 40 minute time frame. So getting it down to at least 20, that was the first big hurdle. It was a lot of teamwork, a lot of, you know, talking through stuff, and, you know, with the playwright being like, hey, do we really need this? Or can we ad lib it a little bit here so it's not quite as long of a sentence, just to like cut down a few little things.
Yeah.
I definitely, you know, cut some of the special effect things that were, you know, planned to happen. I mean, not anything big, but it was like, you know, the long dramatic pauses with spotlights and stuff. Stuff like that was taken out just because it didn't need to happen. It was there more for like the spectacle and stuff to have it. And also just, I guess, putting it on film, I had a couple, I was actually less worried to do some of the special effect things on film rather than stage, because there were some things where I was like, how am I going to make that happen on the stage? But yeah, it was a challenge. I'm still in communication with playwright. We're still figuring out things that we need or not. We have everything filmed, but it's still at around 33 minutes. But I have multiple takes of things that I haven't cut out yet. So we're gonna get it down to 20 minutes.
Okay.
It should be, every scene should be around like a minute and a half. Well, not every scene, but every like bit of filming. So we just have to cut the duplicates out and stuff like that.
I see.
But yeah.
Cool. And you had a unique problem that occurred to you where you had a location that you'd secured, an office location that got pulled out from under you at the last minute, right? So
Yeah.
tell me about that kind of scrambling that you had to deal with.
Well, I had an office at one of my friend's houses, and then
You don't have to name names. That's okay. Yeah.
What?
You don't have to name names. That's fine.
Oh yeah, I won't. And they basically they said it about like a couple days before we a couple days before we started filming. They said, hey, my parents are actually gonna be needing the house for those days. So yeah, it's not gonna work to have you and them and the house at the same time.
Right.
For that weekend. So it was, of course, the one weekend everybody's schedules converged into one, and I had time and I was like ready to go. And then that weekend was also not good for their parents. So yeah, so I had to quickly find a new location. I was like, okay, what places do I have available that are also not being used by other people? I figured the theater was pretty empty, so I messaged around, talked to you, talked to Rebecca and Jay, the people who are usually in the building, and they were like, yeah, the black box ready. And I got there, and there was already a desk set up, there was a computer, because everything's being moved around. So I was like, wow, this, maybe this did work out for the better.
Right.
But yeah, so it was kind of scary trying to find a location a couple days before we started filming, because one of the actors was going back home at the end of that weekend, at the start of the next week. So I didn't have a ton of time to, move things around or reschedule or find a new person at that short notice. Yeah. So I'm glad it worked out. But yeah, so it was a scramble, but we made it work.
Yeah. Well, and I think everybody's probably got at least a small version of that story where something unexpected happened. I know I've gotten emails from a few of you about various little last minute things that have plagued the shoot, but it seems like it's all still worked out. So just a couple last general questions for everybody. Is there anything that you would say that you've taken from this experience that you would apply to the next time you get a chance when, fingers crossed, that we're all able to return to the stage, that you find yourself directing a project on stage again? I don't know, maybe none of you have an interest in continuing and doing that, but anything that you would say from this unique circumstances that you've learned or takeaways that you would apply to directing for the stage as well? Yeah, Claire.
I think a big thing for me was like letting go of control. Like one day I brought in a different actor, like not like replacing anyone, but just like a whole new, he was like, I'm bored, can I do anything? And I was like, do you have a suit? Come on in. And like being scrappy, because I had a problem with office locations too. And I ended up like using my sister's apartment and setting up a coffee table on tote boxes and then like draping a blanket over it so you couldn't see it.
Okay. So like, scrappy is a good word for it.
Yeah.
Especially when, and this is going to be true for a lot of any kind of directing project, when you are extremely limited in budget and time, and people are donating their time and their efforts and everything. And we talked a lot about how in this field, but it's true for so many fields, that as the further up you go, the more experience and professional you get, the bigger the budgets get, the better people's schedules are, the more cooperative everybody can be, and you have a lot more freedom and relaxation. The pressure might be higher, but So it's ironic and frustrating sometimes that at this, when you're just starting this thing, you're just trying to figure it out for the first time. You also are at more of a disadvantage in all those areas than when you go on. Anyone else find themselves thinking about a stage play and wanting to continue to do that, and how something from this could benefit them?
I guess like one thing for me that I never really thought about is lighting. I use a lot of lights in my short film, so placing on lighting, how it like falls on the face, how it like brings out the character, how it like can create like a certain mood.
Yeah.
And also another thing that I don't necessarily like really think about like when I'm like on a like play, I guess,
Yeah.
is transitions
Yeah.
and the flow of things. And so like with a short film, like it's very, you have to have like really good transitions just to make everything just kind of flow. And
Yeah.
in a play, I don't necessarily really think about that
Right.
just because like they're like acts and stuff like that. But
Sure.
it really puts in perspective like all like the little technical things that you
Yeah.
just kind of forget every once in a while.
That's great, and that's absolutely something they have in common. Not just the visual picture that lighting creates, whether it's on stage or on film, but the storytelling aspect of a smooth transition between. Very good. Let me ask one more. So, is there anyone who, after doing this, might consider or is already thinking that they might find themselves making another short film someday? It's okay if this was a one and done for you.
I don't think it would be anytime soon.
Okay. But maybe
Just
someday?
because, I don't know, I'm not the most organized person. And if I could, write a letter to my past self, I would be like, get some folders, put some stuff in there so you know where you're going.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I would definitely do it again. I would, now that I have this experience and I kind of know exactly what it takes, I would try again, just not anytime soon, I guess.
Take some time off.
Yeah,
Nina, you about to say something?
Yeah, I don't think I'd ever direct another short film. I don't know. I'm not a director, and it's not something that I really enjoy, but I would like to produce another one. I like, the only part of the process I didn't like is when I actually had to like lead the conversation. Like that made me uncomfortable, but I liked like creating props. I liked writing the script. I didn't mind acting in it. So like I think that I would prefer to produce and direct a short film.
Yeah. And I was gonna say you're a writer, so continuing to work in that genre is interesting. That's good. Anyone else?
I'll
I
probably,
do. Yeah. Oh,
sorry, Claire, go ahead.
you go.
No, Claire, you.
Zoom. It's the best.
Okay. I definitely do it again. Like kind of like what Nia said, I wasn't a big fan of directing. Like it just made me feel like a crappy like camp counselor. Like just like rounding up these kids. I don't know. It felt weird. But it was a lot of fun. And especially because like my subject theme was so like light and fun. It wasn't
Yeah.
like taking a toll or anything like that.
Yeah. That's good. Brian?
Yeah, piggyback off of that, like same. It was very interesting. I don't know if I'll do it anytime soon. It's very, very time consuming and it can get very stressful, but like I'm learning so much already, like with like programming and stuff like that, which is super interesting. So I feel like I will do it again. I'd rather act in it, but I mean like I don't know, it was kind of fun like making up like my own like storyline and my own and all of that. So that was interesting.
Cool. How about you, Morgan?
I don't know. I think it was a fun experience, and I'm glad it's something that I can say I've done. I guess I wouldn't be like totally against it if I got asked to help out in any way. I wouldn't want to have like the whole process weights on my shoulders, where I have to like plan everything. But if I had like one specific job in it, I wouldn't be totally opposed to it by any means, but we'll just see.
And you're looking to go into education specifically.
Yeah.
So this is one of those tools now that you never know when it's going to come up with a class,
Right.
either because of pandemic reasons or that you could turn something into a film project. Great. Well, thank you all for this discussion. I really appreciate it. I'm not going to let you all hang up just yet, but let's go ahead and wave goodbye to our viewers. And I was really great getting to hear some of your insights on everything, a lot of which I hadn't heard myself yet. So thanks for watching, everybody, anybody who watched.